The teasers dropped, the fandom went silent. In an instant, a single statement turned the entire K-pop world upside down. Flashing cameras, dark silhouettes, a shattered stage. This wasn't a hiatus, this was an erasure.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to StarScope K Report.
Yeah.
Join Eric and Minji as they ride the Hallyu wave, uncovering the biggest K-pop comebacks, shocking industry controversies, and major K-drama updates. From internet-breaking rumors to historic chart milestones, we dive deep into the world of Korean entertainment.
So today's deep dive mission tackles a headline that, honestly, it still sends chills through the community. Like, the headline is literally, "He's officially gone, the darkest K-pop scandal ever."
Yeah, it's heavy.
It really is. And our goal today is to unpack the horrifying timeline of former NCT main vocalist Taeil. We're going to look at the legal fallout that followed and how it completely shattered a fandom. We'll be looking at official agency statements, police reports, and the raw reactions from netizens, the dedicated internet citizens who document basically every move in this industry.
Right.
We want to understand exactly what happened and why this specific case fractured the bedrock of K-pop.
Right. And I mean, we really have to start with the day the illusion just completely shattered for NCTzens all over the globe, which was August 28th, 2024. It was just a normal day, right? Fans are going about their business, they're streaming songs, they're looking forward to the group's next comeback, which, in K-pop is a massive, highly coordinated new music release and promotional cycle.
Exactly, yeah.
And then just out of nowhere, SM Entertainment drops a press release that is basically unprecedented in its bluntness.
Yeah, the phrasing they used, it was a complete shock to the system. Like, they announced that Taeil, Moon Tae-il, the 30-year-old main vocalist of NCT and the subunit NCT 127, was just immediately removed from the group.
Just gone.
Yeah. The agency explicitly cited that he had been accused in a, quote, criminal case related to a sexual offense. And just like that, and the career was over.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the speed at which this happened is honestly mind-boggling.
It really is.
Usually when an idol faces allegations, agencies, they drag their feet, right? They announce a temporary hiatus, a pause in activities. They say they're checking the facts, or they vaguely threaten legal action against malicious rumors.
Right, the standard PR playbook.
Exactly. It's like watching a developer instantly dynamite a skyscraper they spent 8 years and millions of dollars building without even, throwing up a perimeter fence.
Yeah, and that skyscraper analogy hits the nail on the head, because it perfectly explains the architecture of SM Entertainment's usual PR strategy.
Yeah.
Historically, SM is notorious for what industry insiders call the ostrich tactic.
Burying their heads in the sand.
Right, exactly. Burying their heads in the sand. When you invest millions of won into training a main vocalist, or especially your visuals, the members specifically marketed for their elite, flawless looks, you protect that investment at all costs. You just wait for the public outrage to blow over.
So abandoning that strategy means they knew exactly what they were dealing with.
Precisely. To sever ties instantly, to pull the load-bearing pillar out of a multi-million-dollar brand in a matter of hours, it signaled undeniable, irrefutable guilt. They didn't just smell smoke. They saw the fire, they knew it was toxic, and they immediately evacuated the building to save whatever brand equity they had left.
Man. And that panic clearly spread to the artists themselves, because the reaction from the other NCT members was just as instantaneous.
Well, absolutely.
I mean, we're talking about guys who have lived together, trained together, debuted together, and within hours of the news breaking, fellow NCT members unfollowed him on Instagram.
Yeah.
Taeyong, the leader of the group, who was actually serving in the military at the time, he went onto his account, deleted every single group photo that included Taeil, and cleared his following list to absolute zero.
Which, in the highly curated ecosystem of K-pop social media, is the equivalent of a public denunciation.
It's a huge statement. And then Da-young and Hae-chan, the maknae, or the youngest members of the 127 subunit, they unfollowed him completely too. Da-young even cleared his entire following list, just like Taeyong. You can only imagine the sheer panic in that group chat.
Oh, to be a fly on the wall for that.
Right. But beyond the panic, there is the betrayal.
The psychological toll on the members and the fandom must have been staggering. If you look at the discussions from netizens on Reddit, fans were pointing out a deeply disturbing contextual detail.
What was that?
Well, Taeil had been on a hiatus recovering from a severe motorcycle accident he had in August 2023. So for the better part of a year, the members and the fans thought he was just at home, resting, recovering from a fractured thigh.
Oh, wow. So they were sending him well wishes, sending him gifts, assuming he was, physically vulnerable.
Exactly. The cognitive dissonance of finding out what he was actually doing during that supposed recovery period, it broke the fandom. It turned all that empathy into nausea.
It really did. The hardcore fans went through this terrifying mix of mourning and just sheer rage. We saw fans immediately closing down their dedicated fan account.
Oh, yeah, just wiping them off the internet.
And they were taking their expensive, rare photo cards, items that can sell for hundreds of dollars, and setting them on fire on camera.
That's all those videos, yeah.
They were destroying merchandise. And it wasn't just about canceling him. It was a visceral display of solidarity with the victim. They wanted to completely cleanse themselves of any association with him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not even the wildest part of this case. Wait until you hear the chilling details the prosecution uncovered about the timeline of that night.
Yeah, the timeline is where the curated illusion of the perfect idol completely falls apart, and we see the grim, mechanical reality of why SM had to act so fast.
So, citing the reports from the Korea Junin Daily and the Access Hollywood coverage, let's lay out the actual timeline of the crime. June 13th, 2024. Taeil and two non-celebrity friends, identified only by their surnames Lee and Hong, meet an intoxicated Chinese tourist at a bar in Itaewon around 2:30 in the morning.
Right.
They put this heavily intoxicated woman in a taxi, take her to Lee's home in the Bangbae-dong neighborhood, and sexually assault her. But then they deliberately move her to another location in a taxi.
That's the part that really, yeah.
Right. Now, during the trial, the perpetrators tried to claim it was an unplanned event, a drunken mistake. But I have to push back on that logic. If it was unplanned, why did they intentionally take a stranger to a private villa at 2 in the morning?
Exactly.
And worse, why did they deliberately move her afterward? According to the prosecution, Hong even texted Lee saying, "Go out and put her in a cab, make sure it's a different place from your home." That does not sound like a tragic lack of judgment. That sounds incredibly calculated to disorient the victim.
What's fascinating here is how the South Korean legal system categorizes this specific level of premeditation and group violence. They were charged with special quasi-rape.
Special quasi-rape.
Yes. In South Korean law, this refers to a sexual assault involving two or more perpetrators against a victim who is unconscious or unable to resist. It carries a massive legal weight. And to your point about the premeditation, the prosecutors entirely doubted the defendant's claims precisely because of those text messages.
Wow. Yeah, it's in writing.
Right. They recognized a deliberate attempt to cover their tracks by exploiting the fact that the victim was a foreign tourist in an unfamiliar environment.
But here is the gap in the timeline that really gets me.
Okay.
The crime happens on June 13th. The victim reported it in mid-June. But SM Entertainment and Taeil supposedly weren't notified until mid-August. And Taeil wasn't officially questioned until August 28th. How is that even possible?
Well, that 2-month gap wasn't a delay. It was a strategic silence by the authorities.
Oh, really?
Yeah. During those 2 months, the Seoul Bangbae police were working relentlessly behind the scenes. They were executing search warrants, analyzing CCTV footage, securing digital forensics, and basically building a watertight case before they even knocked on Taeil's door.
Oh, I see.
By the time Taeil and his friends submitted written statements of self-surrender in late August, the police already had them dead to rights. The prosecutors openly stated in court that they heavily doubted the sincerity of these so-called voluntary confessions, implying the defendants only confessed because the police had already executed search warrants on their homes.
So it was less of a guilty conscience and more of a, the walls are closing in scenario.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that distinction plays heavily into how the courts viewed the sentencing phase.
Okay, let's break down the numbers on that, because I was looking at the sentencing documents, and I have to admit, I'm completely baffled.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
The indictment came down in March 2025. The prosecutors were seeking a 7-year prison sentence, arguing that the nature of the crime was particularly grave and demonstrated extremely poor character.
Right.
But on July 10th, 2025, Taeil pled guilty and was sentenced to 3.5 years in prison, plus 40 hours of a sexual violence treatment program, and a 5-year ban from any employment related to youth or children. This sentence was later confirmed by the Supreme Court in December 2025. How does the justice system justify cutting a requested sentence in half for such a premeditated crime?
It's a deeply controversial function of the legal system in South Korea, often centered around a concept called Jeongsang Chamjak, which loosely translates to extenuating circumstances.
Extenuating circumstances.
Yeah.
For this.
Yeah. The court determined they would serve half the requested time for three main reasons. It was their first offense, they ultimately admitted to the charges in court, and crucially, they reached a financial settlement with the victim.
Wait, really? So paying the victim off essentially buys you a lighter sentence?
In cold terms, yes. When a financial settlement is reached, it often results in the victim submitting a non-punishment petition or a letter of forgiveness to the court. The justice system views this as the victim being compensated and the perpetrator showing remorse.
That is just whack.
It's a stark reminder of how wealth and resources can dramatically alter legal outcomes, a reality that deeply frustrates advocates for sexual assault survivors who argue it creates a two-tier justice system.
I can completely understand why people would be furious about that.
Definitely. And hey, if you love staying updated on your favorites and want more insights into how these complex industry mechanics actually work, make sure you subscribe to StarScope K Report. We've got even bigger scoops ahead.
Absolutely. Hit that button.
And later in the deep dive, we'll talk about the shocking plot twist regarding how this legal resolution fractured the internal group dynamics of NCT, a ripple effect nobody saw coming.
Yeah, so the court might have decided that 3.5 years was a balanced equation, but for the rest of NCT, the math of their entire career just fractured. We have to look at the collateral damage. How does a massive K-pop group survive something like this? NCT was used to absolute dominance, easily securing an all-kill on the charts, which means hitting #1 on every single major music streaming platform simultaneously.
All right, they were at the top of their game.
Now, suddenly, they are navigating a PR nightmare that strikes at the very core of their identity.
And the timing amplified the damage immensely. It couldn't have happened at a more vulnerable moment for the brand.
Right. If you dive into the discussions on the Rickelprance Reddit threads, fans correctly point out that NCT was already entering a natural slowdown period.
Yeah.
They were transitioning into their enlistment era, where older members are required by law to leave for mandatory military service. It's naturally a time of reduced group activities and a shift towards solo projects. But then the Taeil scandal drops, and shortly after, Mark makes a shocking decision to step away from the group.
Mark's departure was the aftershock that nearly brought the whole house down.
For a lot of fans, the timing felt deeply connected. Fans on Reddit speculated that while Mark was already notoriously overworked, he was juggling duties in NCT 127, NCT Dream, and the supergroup, Super M. The psychological toll of realizing you might not actually know the person you spent the last 8 years side by side with was the final straw.
Yeah, how could it not be?
Right. One user wrote that the scandal ruined NCT's legacy for them permanently, making it so they couldn't even listen to the older classic songs because hearing Taeil's voice triggered an immediate sickening memory of his crimes.
That's so heartbreaking for the fans. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, though, there is a complex duality to how a collective processes this level of trauma.
What do you mean?
Well, while the public-facing brand was heavily damaged and some fans felt the dynamic was permanently broken, many 127 Zins, the dedicated fans of the NCT 127 subunit, pointed out that this tragedy might have actually served as a crucible for the remaining members.
By bringing them closer together.
Exactly. Trauma can shatter a foundation, but it can also forge incredibly strong private bonds among those left behind to pick up the pieces.
So while the business side was bleeding, the human side was surviving.
Precisely. Despite Mark stepping away professionally, we saw him taking a deeply personal vacation to Hawaii with Do-young, Johnny, and Young-woo shortly after. Do-young and Hae-chan took a trip to Jeju Island together. Do-young's first leave from the military was spent just hanging out privately with the members at Taeyoung's house.
Oh, wow. That's actually really sweet.
It is. The public brand was fractured, but the private brotherhood among the remaining members seemed to solidify. They were all dealing with the exact same sense of profound betrayal, and they clearly needed each other to process it.
It's a really important distinction between the highly polished business of K-pop and the human beings trapped inside the machine.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that machine has a terrifyingly repetitive history. Pinkvilla published a really comprehensive piece recently reminding us that, tragically, Taeil's abrupt removal is not without precedent in the industry.
The Hallyu wave has seen this dark pattern play out before, and each time it exposes a different flaw in the system.
We've seen idols scrubbed from existence almost overnight. You have Seungri, who received an 18-month sentence for his involvement in the infamous Burning Sun scandal, which involved systemic sexual bribery and embezzlement.
Right, that was massive.
Then you have B.I., who left iKON over attempting to purchase illegal drugs. Young Jung-young leaving Highlight after admitting to watching illicitly filmed videos shared by Young Jung-young. Even Kim Garam, who exited the girl group Ellie Seraphim just weeks after debut over intense bullying allegations.
The comparison to Seungri of Burning Sun is particularly potent here, but the mechanisms of the betrayal are actually quite different.
How so?
Both cases involved powerful male idols exploiting their status, operating in nightlife environments, and ultimately facing prison time for sexual offenses. But Seungri was operating a massive, systemic criminal enterprise. He was a businessman leveraging power.
Right, he was running a whole operation.
Exactly. What the Taeil case brings to the surface is the inherent danger of the idol industry's core marketing strategy, selling the fantasy of the good boy.
Right, the whole industry is built on selling an accessible, flawless personality.
Exactly. Fans are encouraged to project their highest ideals of perfection onto their bias, their absolute favorite member. The companies sell a heavily curated fantasy of innocence, loyalty, and flawless moral character.
Right.
So when a member whose entire brand is built on being the quiet, reliable vocalist is revealed to be a calculated predator, it doesn't just disappoint the fandom, it traumatizes them. It creates a profound breach of trust that makes fans question every other artist they support.
I saw an incredibly poignant discussion on this exact psychological fallout in the Reddit threads.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, some fans, trying to cope with the shock, were attempting to retroactively claim that they always got bad vibes from Taeil.
Ah, right. That happens a lot.
Yeah, or that they could somehow tell he was hiding something all along through a screen. But other users, including individuals who identified themselves as survivors of employees, pushed back incredibly hard against that narrative.
And they had a vital psychological point to make there.
They really did. One user pointed out that saying, "I always knew they had bad vibes," is actually deeply disrespectful to the victims. It implies that abusers walk around wearing a neon sign that says, "I am a dangerous person," and that victims are somehow foolish for not seeing it.
Exactly. It blames the victim implicitly.
Right. The terrifying reality, as that survivor pointed out, is that people capable of heinous acts are often perfectly capable of putting up a flawless front. They smile for the cameras, they hit the high notes beautifully, they act like great supportive friends. If his own bandmates, who lived with him for 8 years, didn't know, how could a fan watching a YouTube vlog possibly know?
That right there is the core insight of this entire scandal. The desperation to say I knew it all along is just a psychological defense mechanism for the fans.
It's a way to feel safe, right?
Exactly. Fans want to believe they have a built-in radar for bad people so they can feel safe investing their time, money, and emotions into other idols. Accepting the reality that predators can look and act perfectly normal, even lovable, is much harder to process.
Yeah, that is a really tough pill to swallow.
And that realization sends shockwaves, not just through one fandom, but through the entire Hallyu wave. It fundamentally alters the parasocial contract, forcing every fan to critically reevaluate their relationship with the media they consume.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because it forces us to realize that we don't stan people. We stan the personas created in a boardroom. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss a KT update as we continue to track how the industry evolves from this.
It's definitely going to have a lasting impact.
So what does this all mean? We've looked at the...
This raises an important question. As the Hallyu wave continues to conquer the globe, generating billions of dollars and uniting millions of fans across different cultures, fans are left to wonder, how much do we truly know the people behind the perfectly polished visuals and comeback teasers? When the music stops and the studio lights power down, who is actually standing on the stage?
You've been listening to StarScope K-Report, where Eric and Minji bring you the stories shaping K-pop, K-dramas, and the global Hallyu wave. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.